And we're live. Hey guys, welcome to Whiskey Charlie, the War Game Chat, our monthly show on YouTube. I'm your host, Mo from Mo's Game Table, and joining me as my co-host tonight, Kev is not here, so we're just going to have me and Gimp, everyone's favorite Gimp with the Limp, the Gimpy Gamer, Nate Rogers. How's it going, Nate?
It's another glorious day in the core. Nice to see a couple of honorable guests here with us this evening. Nice to have us.
We have two awesome people here. We have Mark Walker and we have Hermann Luttmann. Everybody knows both of these guys. They've been on the show before, and they're awesome designers, great guys, and we love having them on. And been trying to get them on for a couple months to talk about rules and learning games and stuff like that. But we'll get to that soon enough.
Thanks for having us,
going, guys. How's it going?
Great. I love your intro music, man.
Yeah,
me too. I was going to break out my
metalhead is just going crazy.
Yeah,
there you go. There you go.
Good to be here. It's good to see y'all.
Yeah, it's great to see you too. And before we go any further, we got less than 24 hours to go on the 85 Kickstarter. That's your background there, right, Mark?
Yes, we do. It's got almost 35,000. We'll see what we do in the last 24 hours.
Nice.
Like to see a few more thousand, get a few more stretch goals knocked out. I'm excited about it.
Let's see here. I'm going to add that in. For those who don't already know, definitely go to that link, check it out. And if you've played 65, you will be familiar with the system, and it's going to have its own personality and some things that are going to be done differently. But if you've played 65, you have a good feel for how the game's going to go. And if you've not watched it, we did a playthrough or a partial playthrough on the channel. So that'll also
we had a good time doing that.
Yeah, that was a lot of fun. That's a lot of fun. It's good. I'm looking forward to it. I can't wait to have that one and play, because you can play 2-player, or you can play, or even 3 or 4 if you wanted to add in more people and split things up. But you can also play solitaire, because you're going to have the Alone in the Mountains solitaire expansion as well, correct?
Yep, absolutely. Been working on that all day pretty much. So, yeah, I'm looking forward to it. One of the nice things about designing solitaire games is you can test them yourself.
It's true.
This is true. It only takes one to test, which is good.
It only takes one.
The system works
Plus,
well.
they're easier to get play testers for.
Yeah. What were you saying, Herm?
I said the solo system works well in 65 too. I assume it's a similar system, right?
It is.
Alone in the
it's the
Jungle.
same system, refined, but yeah.
So fall asleep, Mark. That was I texted Mark earlier. I'm like, hey, you want to come on the show tonight? Because he didn't respond to my email. I know you were, at Sebring and all. And then you're like, sure, I'll come on. And then you're like, what time? And I'm like, oh man, it's past his bedtime.
I told Jester that when we get together for gaming, when it gets to about 8:30, 9 o'clock, Mark's got that look in his face, like, okay, I've had enough now.
Yeah,
I do sometimes. I really do.
Yeah.
But I was upstairs watching the championship game in the World Baseball Classic. Actually, USA's up 1-0 due to a Trey Turner home run. Turner, who will be the Phillies shortstop.
Yep. Did you see the end of the Japan Mexico game? That was quite exciting.
Yeah,
I did. I saw the replay. I didn't see it live, but I saw the replay.
Right.
People were saying, now I want to see it, because they had like it in English. And they said, now I want to see it done by the Japanese announcer. So somebody says, you ask and here you go. And they did the Japanese one. It was even better.
That's great.
Oh, I bet that was amazing. No, I didn't see that.
Great.
I bet that was amazing.
Yeah, it was pretty fun.
What was also amazing was that pinch runner they put in almost caught Shohei Ohtani before Ohtani got home. I don't know. I mean, he was like right on his heels.
Flying.
Is it 1-1? Okay, cool. And Ohtani is not slow by any means. So anyway, back to board games.
Yeah, I can't believe you guys all watched baseball. It's just like mind-numbingly boring to me.
Nah, it's inside baseball. Once you understand all the little intricacies, it's fascinating.
No, it would be better if they could carry the bat for the duration, right, around the bases. That way, as they're trying to make it, if someone's guarding the base,
Whack somebody. Yeah,
you just take them out.
Exactly.
They let them do it in hockey.
Yeah, hockey's a little different though. You're allowed to go. I mean, hockey's the only sport where you have guys between 200 and 250 pounds traveling around at about 30, 35 miles an hour on stake blades with clubs in their hand and no teeth.
I've always said the greatest sport to see live is hockey. It's totally different. It's just so different. You hear them banging into the boards and hitting each other and the skates. It's just amazing.
Yeah, it's visceral.
Yep, it is.
It is.
Yep.
I went to some who was it? The Hurricanes, North Carolina Hurricanes.
Yeah.
Went to their games back in the day. I used to like do concessions or something like that back when I was in high school, and I had a lot of fun going to those games. That was just cool to hang out, even though I'm not a big hockey fan. But you're right, you can hear the smash. You know,
Hey, Fabrizio.
Hey, Fabrizio.
Fabrizio's in the house.
Fabrizio.
Well, the other thing that's cool too is if you get a chance to check out any of the regional leagues like the ECHL, American Hockey League, or the SPHL or anything, get down ice level if you can. Be near the benches and just listen to the chirps that the players are throwing at each other. It's hilarious. It's just
we have a team called the Ice Bears in Knoxville, and it's sold out all the time. And that's exactly what you hear. Everything. It's great.
Awesome. That's awesome. And nothing beats it. But so what have you been up to, Herm? I know Mark's been working on 85 here with the Kickstarter and all. So what are you up to?
Zombie games.
It's been crazy, I have to say. I was actually working on 4 different games yesterday and a little bit today. So it's been quite busy.
Any that you can talk about, or are they all secret projects right now?
No. Well, for people who've been waiting, let's see. I actually looked this up on Board Game Geek. Miracle at Dunkirk. My first Board Game Geek entry was in 2015 for that game. So I finally heard from Randy at Legion. They hired Don Herndon to be the developer. So this thing's going to actually happen now. So.
Oh, wow. Nice.
Yeah. So we're finally getting Edmund Hudson did the map, and we're just going through the rules and the cards and everything now. So hopefully it'll come out fairly soon.
Congratulations. Hope that goes well for you.
What's the turnaround with them?
Long time.
What's the turnaround with them once you get a developer?
I don't know. This is the first game I've done with them.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because it seems like they're a little, slower than other publishers for whatever reason, whether it's a lack of developers or, they're trying to match people up and things like that.
I think it's a little bit of Randy was trying to do everything himself. And
that too.
Yeah.
That's
I
tough.
can one that's slower.
And the Plum Island Horror is, oh my God. You talk about a lot of work. Well, we'll talk about this later in the rules section, but I had to go through the rules reference book, and basically we did a glossary, and I had to go through all my rules and copy and paste everything, all the details into the glossary, and oh my Lord, that was a lot of work. But that game's come on along nicely. I think people are going to like it.
Is it going to have an index too, or just the glossary?
It has an index too. Yeah.
Oh, wow. Because I was going to say that's double the beating then. Index and a glossary.
Yeah.
People don't realize how tough that is.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Oh, damn. I haven't seen that one. I'm eyeballing it right now while you were talking about it. It actually looks pretty good.
Mm-hmm.
I have to say I'm pleasantly surprised the artwork that GMT put together for that. I was afraid it was going to look really wargamey, of course. It's a multiplayer horror game. And Terry Leeds did the artwork on it, and I think he just nailed it.
Okay, now I've got to go look at it.
He's got that 50s comic book vibe here. Let's
it does.
Yeah, it's kind of a Pulp Fiction-y thing.
Pulp Fiction, that's it, exactly. Yeah. Which is very, very cool about that, having that.
This goes back to, and Mark can attest to this. When you get together, we play a lot of multiplayer horror, fantasy, dungeon crawly type stuff. I know Nate plays some of those too, right? And so do you. And I always wanted to design one, and that's basically my attempt at it. Gene Billingsley from GMT was always a fan of Dawn of the Zeds, all the way back to, God, when I first met him at Consum World Expo in Tempe. He wanted me to do something like that. That was like 10 years ago. So this is the first opportunity I've really had to do that. It's going to be fun.
And thank God, custom dice, man. I get tired of D6s, right? Because so many games use D6s or 2D6 or 3D6 or whatever. And it's just nice to see anything that's different. That's always one of the things I always criticize, is that it's always a D6. And I get it, because for publishers, that's probably the cheapest die you can go with. right?
No,
And everybody's used to it. It fits everything.
it
Really?
doesn't matter at all. Doesn't matter at all. It's got
Really?
nothing to do with cost. Nothing.
What is it? Is it just
I don't
game
know.
design?
The design needs to have polyhedral die, and then we use them. But no, there's no difference in cost.
Yeah,
or at least no appreciable difference.
We're looking better the other way, so I'm going to leave it that way. But that right there is
That's a beautiful cover.
And that looks just really kick ass. The best part about
I love
it is
the hole in the fence
and the 10 cents up top. I think that's awesome.
That's a cheap price for a game there.
I know.
Well,
Yeah.
That's a quarter of a penny commission for me.
So you got the
promo
video and
show the counters. Show the counters.
That's where I was looking for here.
Go on down.
I don't think they put it on this page. I don't think they updated the counters. These are old counters.
Oh, there you go.
Those are old counters. You need to go to BGG.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
So
they never update this page, which is interesting.
So it's still going to be the standees?
It's still standees, but they're taller.
They have your interview with Rob. I mean, that's fairly recent, right?
Yep.
Biff Rogers.
That's a good looking counter there. I like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, Herm, is it going to be a standee? I saw it standing up. Oh, that's nice. That's nice.
So the main units and the main baddies are going to be on standees.
Okay.
Nice. But I love that. You have Biff Rogers. Do you have a Chad in there too, or a Chip or anything like that?
There is you're in the game. I can tell you that.
Oh, nice.
There's a Moe's game store.
Nice. That's awesome.
And there's Nate's was oh my God, Nate's in there. Kev is in there. I know Kev is Sharp's Rifle Company. The Walker family. And Nate, I think you have a clothing store, Nate.
Sweet.
Awesome. That's going to be so cool. Yeah, so we're definitely looking forward to that for sure. And, I think it'll be a lot of fun. Your games always are. And one of the things I've always loved about when you do horror and it can be a little scary, but it's also tongue in cheek as well. It's not just straight up scary, which is it makes it more family friendly, which is really cool.
Yeah, I did the same thing with Dawn of the Zeds. It was all tongue in cheek, and I just want, when people play those kind of games, I don't really want them to be afraid, right, or grossed out or anything like that. It's mostly I like bad B movie, horror movies, Mystery Science Theater 3000 type of movies, and so when I do these kind of games, everything's tongue in cheek. Mm-hmm. I hope you'll laugh at some of the cards. All the references, all the names are either people I know or they're pop culture references, or there's a few references of TV shows that I loved, like F Troop and the
Nice. Nice.
Well, there's a Sergeant O'Rourke and a Corporal Agarn, and
that's the added benefit that I could pull that game out in front of my kids, and I'm not going to worry about them seeing whatever's on it. Right? I could let them play it with me. My oldest is 8, and he'd be perfectly fine playing that with me.
Yeah.
And you had the same kind of vibe in Invaders and Colossi, or as Grant says, Colossi. It's the same thing. Nate, to go back to the die and the dice real quick, stamped dice are what cost a lot. Okay,
what's a stamped
dice? It could be a D6, but if each die, I'm rolling die. If each die has a different face on it, like a star, like what we did in Armageddon War. Die, those cost significantly more. Like when we do these deluxe die for the, we did them for the second edition of Fearful Sacrifice. The deluxe die cost more?
Right.
So, yeah.
No, I get that there was are going to cost more. Tony's bored like
it was based on the Attack of the 50-Foot Woman, actually.
Mm-hmm. Fabrizio, he's jumping right into the meat of the subject here. My rule of thumb for rules: if the version number is lower than 20, you must check them again.
Yeah, but we'll never tell you what version it is.
Exactly. It's version 1 as far as you know.
Right.
But
Right.
yeah, Tales from the Crypt, that was another great one. And that's we got Manders joining us as well. Thanks for joining us tonight. Tony, how's it going?
Yep.
And Wardrobe. So
Wardrobe.
what else? Anything else you have to talk about as far as games you got? Because you said you're working on 4. You gave us a couple. Did you give
one of them? I can't talk about. I just finished by Iron and Blood for White Dog Games. That's on the Battle of Königsgrätz. I love that period of European history. I don't know. I'll keep pumping those out as long as I can. Mark and I talked about our next after Crowbar. I think we're going to do the Meuse-Argonne offensive with Pershing in World War I. So that's we're looking forward to doing that. We had to do something with Americans in it.
Yeah, nice,
absolutely.
Nice.
Yeah,
that should be fun.
Yeah,
definitely be fun. So, the topic that we had, it's funny because now rules have become kind of a hot topic here recently with regards to war games. Originally, I think it was back in November, December, we had talked about getting together and talking about how rules learning, as far as learning multiple rules for different games, as far as like content creators and designers and publishers, and how you're constantly having to play different games, and how do you keep them all straight in your head? Newsflash, we really don't, not that well all the time. But how do you do it compared to like some people who play like one game exclusively for an extended period of time, especially when you're trying to get games out quickly, whether it's as a publisher, designer, or content creator. And then now the hot topic, so we can kind of cover both. The other hot topic now is more people. Some people are saying that war game rules are not written well. They don't like the case system, and they think they could be better. And I think that's a whole different discussion, but we can add that into this as well, because I think for some games, the conversational tone could work, but it'd have to be pretty short rules. Or you can have a modified case system where you just have like rule 1.0, 1.1, 1.2, and then go to 2.0. You don't have like 12.1.2.1, stuff like that, where you're really drilling down. But as far as like learning rules, we'll start with you, Mark. As a publisher, when you get a game sent to you from a designer, how hard is it for you to learn a game and then decide right away? Obviously, I mean, I know how you can make the decision if it's going to be a game you want to publish or not, but how do you keep games in your head that, you're just playing something last night, maybe at your little convention here with Herm, and then tomorrow he's got, hey, I got a game for you. I want you to play. Here's the rules. And, how are you able to separate everything in your head?
I can't.
I know he's going to say that.
Okay, next topic.
Yeah, but a couple of points about that, I'll tell you, that are interesting. One of the things that fascinates me is not necessarily to do with publishing, although it's part of it, is how we learn rules. Okay, because not only do I love games. If you look on Kickstarter, just for example, we've run maybe 14 or 15 Kickstarters. I lose track. I personally backed something like 140 or 50 because I love games and I buy other games too. I consider games my professional reading, but even if I didn't, I just love to play them. They're a good break. And so one of the things, but I don't have a lot of time, probably just like the three of you guys, I don't have a lot of time. So I am constantly searching for a way to learn games quicker. That's what I want to do. I want to get a game on the table and get to the point where I'm having fun. And I've got a couple of quick things I'll throw out on that, and then I'll get back to the publisher thing. But thing number one is I look for YouTube videos. And that's why, as just an aside to to content creators, I believe that playthrough videos are more valuable and get more hits probably than reviews. People are not afraid to make up their own mind about a game. They just want to see the thing played. That's one way I learned how to play them. The other way is I just don't read the rules. And I think we all joked and laughed about that. And we kind of agreed when we briefly did. I mean, I can take the rules to a reasonably complex game. Let's say 25 pages. Read them, stem to stern, break out the game, go to move the first piece, and open the rule book, because I don't remember what I need to do. So after doing that all the time, I just got to, why read them? Just skim through the rules, look for, especially if there's a real good sequence of play, you get everything out and you just start going by the sequence of play. I find I learn quickly that way. Let me say as a quick aside, and then I'll shut up. As far as reading rules and telling if I want to get a game, I don't really do that. It's if Herm says, let's do this, I say, fine, let's do it. I don't have to read Herm's rules. Okay.
Well, yeah, he's a known commodity, but I'm talking about anybody
I don't
else
take
comes
unknown commodities, not for Flying Pig. If Greg Porter, who is, I test with Greg every week, he has an impeccable reputation as a role-playing game designer, and he did a great job of getting more. If Herm comes, if Greg comes to me, right now we're working on the sequel to Armageddon War. It's called Rising Dragon. Hopefully we won't go to war with China and ruin that. But Greg doesn't have to show me his rule set. I know it's going to be great. Same thing with Shane, in the old school tactical system. If he wants to do, we're working on the fourth one in that, which is the Mediterranean. That's fine. I'll do it. And so did I miss anything, or did I just talk myself out?
No, I think I thought you were starting to fall asleep there for a second.
The game.
One thing that you hit on, I think, is a real key point, and that really, there's two things. Number one is player aids. A good player aid is a real gigantic key to the puzzle right there of learning a game.
Absolutely.
If you have a good player aid, you could essentially, especially after the more you get familiar with the game, it's not going to happen immediately in game one, but with a good player aid, you never have to hit the rule book. Everything should be right there on the player aid. And if you need to, you can just say, who exactly does this first? Here, let me hit that rule. Oh, yep, it's those guys. Or you can even make a little note to yourself. Right. And that also, player aids are also a great case for the case system, because you don't have to go page 12, because you go to page 12 and you're like, where on page 12 is it? Oh, it's here. Oh, wait, I got to read the other half page before, and then I got to read the page after for it to all make sense. Whereas you can go to the case system, you can read just that case. So
I've never understood, like Herm was saying, I know that we both play the vast majority of our gaming are not war games. Okay. And I know you both don't play war games exclusively. All right. So I've seen what Fantasy Flight does. I've seen what Simon does. And they do a great job. And neither one of them use the case system. And when I pull out a war game and read the rules with the case system, to me, I don't understand what the problem is with the case system. All it is, I mean, if you're talking like, you're saying when a unit moves, you can use opportunity fire, parenthesis 12.1.1, end of parenthesis. All it does is save you time. You go to 12.1.1 and there's opportunity fire. The way Fantasy Flight would do it, God love them, is they would say page 7, and you go to page 7. And like you said, read a little bit before, read the whole page, just to find out that it's in their special terms rule book that they've given you. And then you have to look up opportunity fire. I don't see a problem with cases.
Well, the case system too, I call it, I have another little nickname for it, because I know a lot of people love to use this term, and will say a rule book is not a rule book without an index. Okay, well, the case system is a case system, or the case system is a progressive index, because as you progress through the rules, it's indexing where you need to go next for each of the different cases. So
Yeah,
Herm?
that's a good point.
Yeah, actually, that was the exact point. So the case system, obviously, the biggest advantage to it is being able to find something quickly, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like you just said. I think the problem with the traditional case system, and I don't think it's so much the case system, I think it's the way the case system is presented, the wall of text thing, right?
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm.
So what I've learned playing all these other games is that you have to keep the reader's attention, right? You have to keep the eyes moving. You have to have things. So, for example, in a lot of my latest games, you'll see that I put a lot of, in Most Fearful Sacrifice, I put a lot of colored boxes, different colored boxes. We throw some illustrations in the middle, an example of play, because you want to keep the reader's eyes darting around. Because if you get this wall of text thing, people are going to zone out, right? And when you get to the end of the rules, you're not going to remember what you just read.
Mm-hmm.
So it's almost like a psychological thing, right? Where you're drawing them to different parts of the rules. So, and interestingly enough, it's funny you should mention this. I just came up with this situation with Plum Island Horror. So I wrote the original Plum Island Horror rules in a case system because I thought that was the GMT requirements, right? Mm-hmm. They have a very strict code of this is how you write the rules, this is the system you use. Well, the developer, Ken Kuhn, decided in the middle that we're going to do something different with this. We don't want to present this like a traditional war game. So it's funny that Mark mentioned Fantasy Flight because I was actually brought out the Arkham Horror rules, right? Mm-hmm. So what you have here is you have the Learn to Play book, which is what Mark was saying. This is the basic rule book. You can play the game off of this thing quite easily. You can read this and know how to play the game. And when you get to the fringe cases and the oddball things, you go into the reference book. So instead of throwing all this for all the fringe cases into the main rules and then getting an intimidating 48-page rule book, now you got something a little bit more manageable. And that's exactly what we did with Plum Island Horror. It's got a main rule book, which is only a dozen pages or something like that. So you can play the game off of that. And then if you want to find something specific about a particular area, you can go to the reference book. So that's interesting. Also, it's interesting that there's some rules are written, and I'll give you two specific examples just recently. So I got a Kickstarter. This is Lost Empires, right? So this is a really cool sci-fi card game. I knew how to play this game on the first read of the rule book. I came out of it and I was like, okay, I know how to play this. This is easy. And it's got exactly what I talked about, right? It's got the illustrations, it's got the color, it's got the sidebars, it's got the examples of play, everything's stuffed in there. On the other hand, I bought oh my God, Devil Dogs, right? Mm-hmm. By Worthington at PresCon. I always wanted that. The game is brilliant. I mean, it's a fantastic game, but it's so innovative. When you get done with the rule book, you have no idea how to play the game. I had to go to videos to watch it, and that's the other point Mark made. I read the rule book, then I go find a YouTube video, and that now that I know generally how the game plays, the video kind of slams it all together, ties it all together for me. So, a game that's innovative, that has a lot of different, you need lots of examples of play. Make sure that people are interested in that rule book because you're going to throw a lot of new ideas at them. And I guess one of my guilty things is that, I tend to over-explain stuff. So a lot of the Blind Sword stuff's over-explained because it's not hard, but it's fairly new, right? Mm-hmm. So you need to kind of reinforce, especially with a war game, right? Because everybody's got that set, right? You're in that lane of wargaming from the 70s, right? And if you do anything different out of that lane, you have to double down on explaining it.
This is true. This is true. But
another thing, and you brought it up too, Herm, is if I was talking to a new war game publisher, hire an experienced layout guy.
Oh yeah,
you just can't you can't do your rules in Word and hope for the best. We hire a guy that the guy that did A Most Fearful Sacrifice used to lay out PlayStation Magazine. He knows his stuff. And he also did Crowbar, as a matter of fact. Greg is real good at layout, so he actually laid out Armageddon War. But yeah, you got to hand. And the thing is that Herm gave him something great to work with too.
Yeah.
Herm gave him a document that GUM could look at and say, okay, I see what the intent is here. And then he just did a professional layout job with it. And it ends up being, I think, very readable. I think, I think Fearful Sacrifice is a very easy game to learn.
Yeah, I was actually going to say, as far as Most Fearful Sacrifice went, that even for me, it wasn't that hard to keep stuff in my mind. And if I did make a mistake, the mistake I made was mine. Like, I came by it honestly, right? I remember a goof I made. I think Herm was one of the ones that pointed it out with artillery fire, where I was firing over some of my troops, right? And I'm thinking, well, this kind of makes sense. And it's like, no, you can't do that. And it was in the rules, and I had simply just missed it. So it wasn't like it was misworded or anything bad or anything like that. It just was there, and I goofed, which is, going to happen sometimes, but it wasn't due to piss poor rules, right? Something that drives me nuts, and I think this goes to what you're talking about, layout, Mark, is the page layout. So if you're looking at the rule book and you're reading a section, I don't want to have the very tail end of that section on that next page where it's just a sentence or two, right? Because that makes it so freaking easy to miss. And
that's funny you should say that, because when I'm writing the rules and that happens, I will go delete words and try to get it to shove back onto that page. Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, which is what happens in layout too.
On the very bottom, and there's one line next to the title, and then it keeps going, right? Yeah.
Yeah, because it's so easy. If that is on that next page and it's too short, it's a sentence, 2 sentences, you're going to miss it. Your brain's just not going to pay attention. You're going to go right to that next section.
Easy way to fix that is throw in an image and carry down the next paragraph or two to the next page if you have to continue on.
Yeah.
And I also think what Mo was saying, and Mark too, is because so many games are coming out now, which I think is what Mo was saying, is that there's just such a volume of games that we didn't have back in the 70s and 80s, right? I mean, I got a Kickstarter, Massive Darkness 2, man. It was $200. It came in a box like this. I couldn't believe it. I sold it already because the barrier to entry for me to just get the game up and going was too high.
You got the second one?
Yeah.
Why? The first one was so bad. What do you think?
The second one is a different system, but the thing is that, like I said, it was so much rules reading, it was so much stuff, and I was like, I don't have time to play this.
Yeah, it's got
like Mark, we get Kickstarters all the time that are just overwhelming, and it's like, this is a different age, man. I don't have 6 months to play this game. I'm getting another Kickstarter next week. that the rules might be a little bit more efficient. Maybe the game's a little more efficient. And I'll actually get that to the table. Like I said, I'll get this Lost Empires on the table because it's short and sweet and makes sense.
Well, here's a question.
Darkest Dungeon was that way. Remember?
I'm sorry.
Darkest Dungeon.
Right.
I got 2 boxes. I can't show you how big because my arms don't show up. But 2 boxes, 8 inches thick, 1.5 feet wide. And it's just so intimidating that, reviewers look at it and go, oh, my God, there's 80 miniatures, so it must be worth $150. But for me, nope. But I got Onslaught, the D&D game, and some reviewers say, oh, it's not worth $120. I tell you what, I've played Onslaught 3 times. That's worth something right there.
Yeah, you brought that to PresCon. That was a great game.
I'll tell you, Darkest Dungeon, the real problem with that game was it was dark. It was too dark. I'm not joking. When I filmed it, because I actually filmed and reviewed that game, I struggled with my lighting for hours just trying to get it to show up on camera. Because if I had my lighting turned up even the littlest amount, it washed out all the components. The pretty tiles, the pretty cardstock thing, I forget the stances, right? all that stuff that looks so great. The moment I turned up the lighting just a little bit to be able to film it, because of that glossy coating and the fact that they were all so dark, immediately washed out. I had to film it in a completely dark room to actually get it to show up.
Did you like it? Did you like the game?
The game is okay if you are a Darkest Dungeon fan. If you're a big Darkest Dungeons fan and you like board games, okay. Because they did a relatively good job of translating the video game over to a board game experience.
Okay.
If you are not a big Darkest Dungeon fan, then your money would be better spent into a different dungeon crawl, because that's all it is. It's a dungeon crawl set in that IP, right? And there are many others that you'll get more bang for your buck than you will that one. That one I would probably wait for like a second edition where they unscrew up all those components that are just darker than shit. Because it's not just that it's too dark to film, it's too dark to play. And that was a running complaint among every reviewer.
Oh, okay. All right.
See, now, Herm, you brought up that game that you got in from Kickstarter and you're like, yep, you're out of here, and you sold it. Right. Is that now, do you say that is a fault of the game, or not a fault, but maybe a shortcoming?
No, I think it's a fault of the game. The game's actually been well reviewed. And like Gimpy said, I had Massive Darkness 1 and I didn't like it. Got rid of it. Massive Darkness 2 had a different system. And again, you're right. It might be my fault that I got whatever Kickstarter.
Well, not your fault. It just doesn't fit. It just doesn't fit what you want and what you need. Is where I was
right
going.
At this point in my life, it's that whole thing of you look at it and go, wow, that looks really good. I need to have all of it. And then when you get it, you go, wait a minute, I can't play this, right? And the other thing, Gimpy, about Simon, separate from the rules, is their miniatures. They store them in these plastic holders that are formed for each of the miniatures, and there's dozens of miniatures. So you look at it and you're going, wait a minute, I have to take out each one of these guys, right? And then to get it stored again, I got to find where they all go again. It's just
you don't. No, you don't, Herm. Tell them how I store my games.
All right. Well, Mark just picks the board up
all the miniatures, everything into the box, put it up on the shelf.
Honestly, I'm with you on that. I'm thinking rip the plastic sheeting out that holds all the minis, and then just put them in.
Well, I almost did it. Then I just decided, you know what? I'm not even going to bother, because if I want to sell it, I got to keep all that stuff. And to Mo's point, it was not a fault of the game, but the rules were still just so thick, and there's just so many games for me to play now. It's like, okay, you're not going to get played, because I got other games that are smaller that I'm going to. Now, maybe that's my particular situation, because I'm designing most of the day, and I just take a break and play something, for my entertainment. So it might be my particular situation.
Yeah. I mean, the reason I was saying that is because, one of the criticisms that it's like war games are getting, there's a lot of criticism headed towards war games lately from non-war gamers that are saying they want to get into war games, and they say rules are one of the barriers to entry. It's like, okay, well, is it rules a barrier to entry, or is that the games that you've looked at are not really for you, or at least not for you at this time?
Because I've seen some Euro game rules and they blow me away as far as complexity. I mean, I'm looking at it, and I can attest from personal experience. I was in a Euro game group for a couple of months, and even the ones that Jester plays, I look at that and go, oh my God, there's no way I'm going to try to tackle this thing.
I was at a con and I was sharing a room with Uwe Eichert and Byron Collins.
Uwe.
Yeah.
You shared a room with Uwe?
Yeah, I did. I'm ashamed to admit it. But anyway, so there was this, I'm trying to remember the name of the Euro game. It was like Puerto Rico or something like that. And so Byron said, y'all got to play this game. It's great. It's great. And so Uwe and I said, okay, all right. So Uwe and I are both on our laptops working while Byron's setting this thing up. It took so long to set up, and hence was so complicated that we were shutting our laptops and ready to hit the sack before Byron even got it set up. The point is not to trash Puerto Rico. It might be God's gift to games. I just don't know. The point is to say that Euro games and Ameritrash games are not as complex as war games would be an incorrect statement. I mean, it all depends on the game. And I think you hit the nail on the head, Mo, when you said what it is you haven't found a war game you're interested in yet. And there are war games that I read the rules to. I say, this is just insane. If you've got hidden units and you've got sighting ranges, I close the book right there. But hopefully you don't have sighting ranges in Fearful Sacrifice. Do you, Herm? No, you never do that. You would never do that.
Coming in the expansion, though.
Yeah. It's not an expansion. It's a full game that's coming.
There you go.
But anyway, I think that could be the case. They just haven't found something they're interested in, something with the right type of rules.
Well, here's a question from Mark. What game is it that you've published that you are most proud of?
Don't know.
The Most Fearful Sacrifice is the right answer with Herm right there.
No, it's okay. Yeah. You can say whatever you like. It's fine.
Well, I mean, that one.
I would say old school tactical, right?
Yeah.
Old school's good.
Honest to goodness, I like every single one of them. I like all of them. Back to the lock and load days to now. They all are fun. They've all had their place for certain game tables, and certain gamers haven't liked them. Certainly, A Most Fearful Sacrifice is one of the ones I'm very proud of, but as Herm and I think have told a lot of people, I know we talk about it, it was a bit of a perfect storm because I knew how well Herm could design Civil War games. And I knew how well we could put a Civil War game together, meaning we, Flying Pig Games, not cutting any corners with the goal of trying to make an epic game about Gettysburg. And the whole thing just came together, and people really.
And we had the perfect map artist too, Rick Barber. That was his jam, Gettysburg.
Yep. Well, I'll tell you something you should take as a compliment here, because a lot of the playthroughs I do, I'll do them as long as I can. Games of a certain size, you can't play through them. I'll do 100 videos trying to play through a whole campaign. But yours was one of the ones that I played through as long as I could, and it didn't come off the table because I wanted it to come off. It came off because it had to come off, because I had other things that had to replace it. And for me, that's a lot, because that's a Civil War game. And I'm not a huge Civil War guy. Right. I've never been big into Civil War games. So for Most Fearful Sacrifice to be on my table for that long and film that much and me not be tired of it says something about the game.
Oh, well, thank you very much. I appreciate that.
Hey, I'm blowing a little smoke. What can I say?
But that's the thing, when it comes to learning games, one of the things that I have, one of my secret weapons is these. And there's a little one that I'll have in my pocket, and then there's a bigger one.
Is that a tablet or a notepad?
Notebooks. I have a bunch of notebooks.
Oh, okay.
And when I play, whether I'm playing, if I'm playing for any type of coverage that I want to do on a game, review, after action report, whatever, I will write down a running commentary in the book. I'll be like, okay, turn one, this happened, and then this was a response, and these guys took this, and these guys lost this, whatever. And then there was one, I did a running commentary similar, but I didn't set it put in my notebook. I did it on Twitter when I played The Night, which was that Night of the Living Dead game that White Dog Games came out with. And I had a blast doing it, because I used to do that a lot several years ago on Twitter, where I'll be playing a game, I'll just take pictures, and then I'll just put a commentary about what's going on here. Oh, these guys just smashed these guys in the face, so on and so forth, or whatever. And I just started having a good time adding in the character comments that, like Barbara can't hit shit with a shotgun, and, she's missing. And then I had the girl, I forget what her name was, the little girl. I had her say, yeah, what the fuck, Barb, give him back the shotgun, because she couldn't hit anything, but these were the lines going through my head, because I was having fun playing the game. And that's what you want. You want to have a narrative.
You just hit the nail on the head, Mo, as far as the reaction, let's say, to Dawn of the Zeds, which is my favorite reactions, are people doing exactly that. They're just telling the story of their game without talking about rules or anything. They're just reiterating it like it's a novel or something, right?
Yeah.
And to me, that's what those kinds of games should do.
Yes.
They tell the story.
You want that story, and you want to be, and when you're playing, you want to have that story be part of your experience. That's the point of playing, Now, on the other hand, when you're playing maybe a more multi-layered or more complex war game or something like that, then you're getting into the cerebral puzzle of trying to solve a tactical or an operational problem. And then you're taking notes in a different way. You're writing down, okay, well, I can't forget these guys over here. Can't forget these guys over there. Or like me, when I did my NATO AAR and I completely forgot playing as a Soviet, I completely forgot about my flank. And when I switched hats and I played NATO, I was like, holy crap, I totally left my flank open. I can win this game right now. And I was just like, I can't believe I did this, but it was fun. You can completely fool yourself. But when it comes to learning rules, like I said, notebooks are great to have with you because you never know what's going to happen during a game. You can play something and you'll, oh, do I have a question on this? I'm not sure. Let me write that down and I'll go back to it later rather than stopping, going to BGG or a Facebook group or CSW or something like that. And then falling into that rabbit hole of looking for the answer. And then you're like, oh, finally, I've been looking at it for an hour and a half.
Right.
I don't feel like playing that game anymore right now. You take yourself out of it. So it's better to sometimes write it down.
Yeah, you find the answer and then you go, what was I doing? You go back to the game board, you don't remember what you were doing. I kind of do it the opposite way. I'll jot down on a piece of paper what I'm doing, like Soviet's first division move. And then I go look up the problem. So when I come back, I go, that's what I was doing. But I have a friend, Deborah, I won't use her last name because I don't know if she wants it used, who runs Geek Gamers. And what she does is solo RPGs. That hasn't always been her YouTube channel's thing, but that's her thing. And she talks about when she's creating these RPGs, these solitaire, she only does solitaire RPGs, how she's taking notes and then how frequently a whole story starts developing as she's taking notes. So I absolutely think that probably happens for a lot of people, Mo.
Yeah. Right. And the other thing too that I found is, because I've dabbled with at different levels with development, or and I've got some ideas that I write down about games. I'll just come up with an idea on something that I just saw, and I'll be like, wow, what if this was done in this way or something like that? I'm like, hey, get my notebook out and I'll write it down because I'm like, here's what to do in this situation. I get that a lot with like tactical games. How could you make this feel a little more realistic without being overcomplicated? Well, here's an idea. And then I'll just throw it into a notebook and then, it'll just sit there. Maybe it'll get used in the future. Maybe it won't. Or I'll say, hey, you got an idea. You're doing this game. How about doing this? I'll pull up my notebook and I'll say, here's something. And I'm like, oh yeah, that'll fit or it won't fit, Yeah. But it keeps the creative mind going. And I think that's kind of neat. But writing things down, I found from a young age, especially for me, is really important, and it helps you retain things, which is another good reason about writing down when you're doing games. And create your own play rates too, your own little shortcut things.
It's funny. I was just going to say that, going back to what you said about player aids, which are extremely important, right? A well-made player aid will get you through those games quickly.
Sure.
I used to do the same thing you did. I did player aids that I developed, that I designed myself to get me through a certain game. And now that I think about it, oddly enough, I had a player aid made up for World at War, the first edition, that actually got put on BGG and had like hundreds of downloads because I took all of Mark's rules and I just did player aid, and put it up there and people loved it. And I think that's
because the rules were so poorly written.
Come on, rules are so easy to write. Errata should never happen. Well, that's according to Jester.
Is Jester still on?
God,
I think so. Yeah.
Oh my God.
Well,
I'd like to. Yeah.
I'd
love him because I do. I think he's a great guy, but I would love to turn over production of a game to him from the time the rules are handed in, and then take it all the way through, all the counter proofing, all the rule proofing, all that, getting back the hard copies, proofing those, and then talk to him about how there should never be a mistake. Right. If we were all charging $200 for a war game and we had enough people to have 2 or 3 people on staff to do all that kind of stuff, sure, he would have a point. Yeah. But it's tough to catch everything.
Well, and the other thing we're always wrestling with, Mo, I can tell you as a fact, is if you go and put everything into your rule book, then people complain the rule book's too long or too complex or too wordy or whatever. Then you try to do something like, well, I'm going to do an 8-page rule book, and then you haven't covered everything, right? I mean, there's a series that came out just now, a great series of games called Downfall of Empires and Downfall of the Third Reich. Beautiful games, great games, but there are so many questions on BGG. Exactly.
Face plant.
So many questions on BGG because they tried to make it as
concise,
as tiny, as concise as possible.
Those movement rules.
I got to say 2 things about that. Number one, we couldn't even figure out how to do the combat. Am I right?
Yep, you're right. You're right.
And number 2, let me get this straight.
Wait a minute. Hold on. Time out. You didn't know how to do the combat?
No.
In a war game.
We didn't.
Wow.
We had a way we were doing it. We just weren't sure it was correct.
Oh, okay.
And number 2, Herm, are you trying to say that war gamers like to complain? Is that
never?
That would be an understatement.
But that's a great point.
Yeah, finding that
sweet spot
balance between too wordy and not wordy and keeping it short and sweet is really tough.
Well, to your point, what you said is exactly true, because that's one of the things that people have complained about with NATO. It's an 87-page rule book. It's like, yeah, because he's extremely verbose and he makes sure that there's no wiggle room in there's no ambiguity. So if there is, it's very, 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 very minor. And you're really reading too much into it. NATO, The Cold War Goes Hot from Compass.
Okay. I haven't had a chance to play it.
Yeah, you look at the rules, it's 87 pages. That's because Bruce did such a deep job on making sure he explained the rules completely. And then a lot of people complained about that. Right. It's like, well, he could have made it like a 35-page rule book, or maybe 30 to 40 pages, somewhere in that range. Mm-hmm. But then people will be like, well, in this instance, and if this happens, that's why it's 87 pages.
And so that way it takes edge cases out. I remember Tom Vassell got in magnificent style and he complained that the rule book was too long.
Well, that's hobby gamer mentality for you. They want the short, sharp, fast, rule books.
Yeah.
Well, could you imagine him doing one of his board game box dumps with a war game?
Yeah.
Doing that with what is it called? War in the Pacific? Hell no. No.
Oh.
Yeah. He does the hobby game, so his rule books have to be rather short.
Yeah.
Anything like that would blow him away. I get that.
Yeah.
I'll tell you something that I've been thinking about recently myself is the fact that I actually have to try to slow down, because I always think I've been trying to go too fast because I wanted to stay going, stay productive, get something up. So if I've got multiple tables around, and if I'm working on one game, filming it, I'm trying to learn another. Right. And so many times I've caught myself making mistakes. And just like you guys, right? When they're hard on you guys about errata, they're extremely hard on us if we make an error when we're...
Yeah, if you play something wrong, right?
Exactly, right?
Yep.
But I think that in a sense that part of it is my fault, because I understand I do have that limitation. My memory's shit, right? It's not going to get better. So I need to slow down and put more focus into what I'm working on at the moment. When I was holding up Carrier Battle earlier, I had to push it back. I wanted to already have videos up on that game, and it's just kicking my ass. And what you were talking about, Herm, with the wall of text, this one fits. I don't know if you've seen the rule book to it.
No.
It's program learning, though.
Dude, it's killing me. And combined with that medicine, I fall asleep.
Well, yeah, I was going to say that's part of it, but it's program learning, which a lot of people do like. And I think it's a great thing, too, to introduce concepts in chunks and let you take a stepped approach. And then the other thing is, don't worry about it because I have a learn to play. It's coming out on that. So,
but I think you have to have an example of play after each chunk, right?
Yeah,
so you're reading the legalese, and then you should have an example of play that kind of ties that all together, or at least a good chunk of it together. Yeah. And then the person can say, I see how that all works. Okay, great. Now we go to the next spot.
That would be okay if it wasn't for the fact that the way that it's broken up, it's like the first scenario is based on like 3 pages. And the second scenario is based on like 5 pages. But then you get to the third scenario and it's based on 25 pages.
Oh,
and
it's hard.
Yeah. It goes from little chunks to here's a big pill, try to swallow it. Right. And for me, I am getting crushed. I'm having to switch to something else to film for now while I try to get this in my head. Because if I did it now, I would make too many mistakes, and I wouldn't do the game justice or anyone else justice by trying to film it right now.
I've tried to learn games like that. But before I forget, I do want to tell Jester also has a valid point. And I'm going to give a quick example to express this point. We made a mistake with Old School Tactical Volume 1, 2nd edition. One of the things I do when I design a game is that I get the counter sheets done by some definition of the word, print out those counters and test with those counters. So if I'm designing a scenario and I go, oh, I need 9 T-80 platoons. Oh, there's only 8 in the counter mix. I need to add, I go back to the counter mix, make sure I add one. Okay. Well, we screwed up with 4 counters in Old School Tactical Volume 1, 2nd edition. It's missing some counters, and we got them in recently from the printer, and we're mailing out all these counters to these guys. Okay, fair enough. But the point is yes, we try our best, and yes, we're a small company, but the point is we still take people's money. And if you pay $100 for a game, if you're paying full retail, you expect a full game. Mm-hmm. And so for that reason, Jester's got a point. I mean, sure. Nobody says, look, the game's worth 100, but we're going to sell it to you for 92 because there might be mistakes. Right.
Yeah.
So, we're all trying as hard as we can. But I know where Jester's coming from with that. I mean, he has a point.
Mm-hmm. No, there's a point there, but I think really he also has to understand there has to be a balance too. There's no such thing as a perfectly errata-free game the first time through because, or error-free game, I should say, because not only can a mistake happen when the designer writes it, the developer gets their hands on it, the rulebook editor gets their hands on it, then it goes to the printer. And I'm not even talking about just the rules, I'm talking about the player aids, the counters, everything else. Mm-hmm. The printer can get it and screw up the files. Those things happen. They could miss something entirely. Yep. They can send you a perfect white box or a proof copy and you go, wow, this is perfect. And then when they go into production, they make a mistake on their printing side of things and they ship everything minus 1 counter sheet. Mm-hmm. And that does happen, because it's run by people and people are imperfect. So,
yeah.
Yeah. And proofreading is not as easy as people think it is. And I'm not exaggerating. I've literally looked at counter sheet 12 times, and the 13th time I find something I missed. It happens all the time.
Well, see, that's Crowbar. They keep it too in-house. They've got to get it out to strange eyes, at least to an extent. So
I agree. Blind testing and blind.
I so agree.
Is definitely valuable. Yes,
Nate, I couldn't agree more. But I can't tell you the times in my career that we've gotten rules done. We put them up. We advertise they're up. They're free downloads. Send out a newsletter with a link. We hear nothing. The game gets published. Within 2 days, we have 17 people correcting our capitalization.
Yeah.
What are you going to do?
I don't fault you. I understand exactly what you're saying. They want perfection, but they only want perfection on their terms.
Well, that's the thing. The community has to get involved, to a degree. People have to step greatly. Up. It really does. A perfect example being we're talking about Jester with, his channel and stuff about talking about Volters. When you came up with Volters, he had talked about it. Hey, you're going to need some help checking out rules. And he posted the information up there and you got a dozen people or so you said that reached out that you sent out the rule books to, and you only heard from a few people. So if that happens, people are not always going to step up and get involved.
Yeah. And gamers think that they want to participate in the play testing or development of a game. And then they realize it actually
it's work.
It's a lot of work.
It's work.
Yeah.
wait a minute, I don't want to do this. It's work.
Yeah, I mean, I can tell you the other day I just finished. It was a really busy week at work, and I've been trying to get this rule book I'm working on done. So I was like, I need to get this done. I don't have time really on Sunday to do it. So I sat down on Saturday and I took a couple little breaks throughout the course of the process, but I ran through my final edits. This is the final edits now, final edits and double checking. And I got finished at 3:30 in the morning on Sunday. It was a 12-hour session. So
Wow.
It happens. It's work. So if you're not willing to put in the hours, then it's something that you need to find a way to help in other ways, whether it's playtesting or just proofing a player aid card or something. But you got to put in the effort if you want to help make products better. If you want to help the community, because this is a small community. So, get involved in some way and help out.
Right. And you're right. It is a lot of work. I mean, if you take pride in your work, I mean, even small games that I do for White Dog or Tiny Battle and all that. I mean, Fred and I play for 3 months, on ETS almost, 3 times a week. We're working and working and working on this thing. It doesn't matter how small the game is. You still want to put out something that's respectable. You just don't want to pump them out.
There you go. Tiny Battle.
Tiny Battle right there.
Yeah.
This is that one that Brian sent to me.
That's right. And Brian is here too. Brian Patterson, stand up and be counted. But the other thing too, this goes back to something that Mark had brought up earlier, and you all brought it up actually at different points, is videos, watching playthroughs and stuff on YouTube.
Right.
The one thing about the playthroughs on YouTube is caveat emptor, as they say. You have to be careful because you don't know how well, or you have to vet the video and you have to vet the person who created it, because it's like they could be doing the rules completely wrong, or at least 1 or 2 rules or something like that. Odds are most playthroughs are going to be wrong at some point in there, because
I was just going to say you can almost count on an error somewhere. But for me, they're valuable because they just put everything into context, right?
Yes.
As far as like how the game goes.
Yeah.
Right. And you might see something that they do wrong. Go, oh no, wait a minute, you did that wrong. But at least
then they teach you something else.
Right? So,
yeah. But then they may teach you something else. So you're like, oh, that's how that works. Oh, okay. I couldn't get
exactly.
that.
Yeah. That exactly happened the other day to me watching YouTube. I forget what game, but it was like, oh my God, I didn't even think of that. Right.
Like, damn it, I'm a dumbass. How did I not know that? Jeez. It's true though. And that's why I think, that's why I started doing a learn to play stuff, because I think it really is important and easier for people to see visually and to see the game played. And some people were saying, oh yeah, but you should use the game itself. It's like, they want to see the components. Like, you know what? It's easier to do it with a flattened version on a Vassal or even a tabletop simulator than it would ever be to do on a tabletop, because doing it on a tabletop, your lighting has to be perfect and you can't cast shadows as you're reaching for counters. You're not going to have that problem on Vassal. And it's just so much easier. You can record a video in 1 to 2 hours and then edit it down and add assets you need and stuff like that, and have a video done a lot faster than you would if you did it live. And let's be real. When we're doing these videos, we all have day jobs. So we don't have time to sit down and set up a studio and do that at home and fly to someone's house and do it at their house or something like that too. So
yeah.
Well, Stuka's got the best setup. I've tried to emulate kind of what he's got, and that little crane thing I sent you a picture of has helped, but they don't get it. Like these Euro gamers, for the most part, there's a map size, maybe, right? Usually it's smaller than that, but when it comes to war games, these things can be up to 6 feet, right? Yeah. So you can't just set up a
15
tripod.
square feet, some of them.
Yeah.
Yep. That's what I've heard.
Have something that has the ability to move. So you've got to have the ability to move around the room. You've got to have the ability to not catch echoes, right? So I got to think about the room itself. Like the office that I'm in is surrounded by those little soundproofing boards, right? So it reflects my voice back in. The lighting, like Mo was talking about, so it has to be ambient. It can't be directly on it as you glare. So it has to go up to the ceiling and bounce back. This is all shit I learned over the years. No one told me this crap when I first started doing it. I just was like, like what Herm and Mark were talking about. I wanted to see the games played, and I couldn't find any videos years ago. right? There was one person who was actually doing playthroughs, and it was Callendale, right? He was the only one who was playing any war games of note.
Okay.
Well, you know what? I'm busted up from the Marines. I've got time on my hand. I bet you I can do this. First war games I ordered were Absolute Victory and what was it? World at War by GMT. So,
so you went in with cement shoes on.
I had no idea what
the bottom.
I was thinking, yeah, this would be great. And I remember telling my wife, I was like, oh, do you know that there are war games out there that takes like months to learn? This could be awesome. I'm thinking, this could be so much fun. And then I actually started at it and like reading the rule book. I'm like, okay, this was a bad idea. I might have got my head a little in too deep, but it worked out over time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a valuable service. I mean, look what Rodney Smith has done for the general gaming community with Watch It Played. I mean, granted, you can't really do that with a war game. They're too big, and
you could.
Well, Harsh rule.
Yeah.
But
Ben Harsh, is that his name? Ben Harsh?
Well, Ben Harsh does a good job.
Yeah.
Yes.
He does.
Yes.
He does. Yeah.
Now he's got to do it in multiple episodes.
Segments,
yeah.
And that's the best way to do it. I mean, I wouldn't, if I had an hour and a half video telling people how to play a game, I would publish it in 3 30-minute segments.
You have to break it up.
That's how you triple your content, triple your fun with Everclear, gum, gum, gum.
I would tell you, you can see the analytics, right? Yeah. YouTube will show you the analytics, your view time, how many people, where they drop off,
just drops off,
all that, right?
Yeah.
And that's why all my videos cut off between 25 and 30 minutes, because that's the attention span. Anything past that, they pretty much zone out.
I don't know.
I totally agree. When I go through my YouTube thing, and if it's an hour and a half long video, I'm like, all right, I don't have time for that now.
See, I don't know if that's really true, because 25 minutes may even be too long. Because what do you think is the biggest, hottest thing on YouTube right now? Shorts.
Shorts.
So if you can come up with like 500 shorts, you could teach somebody a rule book. Like 1 minute each.
Each short.
Your point about Ben Harsh is right. Ben Harsh does it exactly right for a war game. Yeah. If that's the war game you want to play, right? So he does Combat Commander and all the big ones. But man, if you want to learn how to play a game, he's the guy to go to.
Yeah.
Heard there was this lady Becca Scott who did videos.
She's awesome.
She does Fantasy Flight and all that stuff. Yes.
She could talk about house plants, and I'd watch it.
You laugh, but that's how I learned Blackstone Fortress.
Yeah.
No shit. The lady knew
definitely good at what she does. Yep.
Up one side and down the other.
Yep.
No good.
Yep. And I played Blackstone Fortress. I want to say this in public, all the way through till I was able to open the secret envelope at the end. And you know what it said?
What it
is
said?
Robert talking about?
Drink more Ovaltine.
Drink more Ovaltine.
No, but I really did. I played Blackstone all the way through.
Nice.
Hey, was the robot your favorite character?
No, my favorite character was the female elf.
Oh, really?
By the time I got to the end, I mean, she had some cards, let her like re-roll all attacks if she was adjacent and stuff. She was just kicking ass.
It sucks. It's really hard to get some of the expansions for that. My brother found out I had the forget which one it is, the one that came with a cultist and something else to it, and he was begging me like, please let me buy it off of you. I'm like, no, I can't do that. He's like, but you're not even going to play it. I'm like, yeah, but it looks good on my shelf. It's a whole collection.
Kilroy here.
You're killing me, 500. Man. You can get 500 for that. That's the first expansion. I think that's Ascension.
I'm not talking about your playthroughs.
Yep. And that's
Kilroy's great.
I'm not talking about your playthroughs, Kilroy. He's saying, I'm right here. You don't have to talk about my playthroughs being wrong in a third person. Trust me, you should know me by now. If I was going to say your playthrough sucks, I'd be like, except for that Kilroy guy, he sucks. But no, you do a great job, man. And you know what? We all make mistakes. And that's part and parcel. I mean, let's face it. How much money are we making from doing YouTube? Pretty much nothing. So it's not like people sit there, the thing that cracks me up is when people watch your content and they're like, well, I'm a subscriber to your channel and you owe me a 5-hour playthrough of this game. It's like, no, I don't owe you anything. I'm sorry. I do this on my time and because I love it and I want to share with the community. And I think all the content creators feel exactly the same. And if people are going to demand of your time, it's like, well, then you're going to write a check to me and say, here's $5,000 for that 5 hours of your time. Right. Because it's not just the 5 hours playthrough, it's the time editing and everything else that all adds up. So it's more than 5 hours. It probably come out to a 5-hour video with proper editing and stuff like that. 30, 40 hours of editing minimum, so
that $100 from YouTube isn't worth the crap.
You get $100, dude. Wow.
Every so often, like they'll just direct deposit in my account. I've never kept track of how often it deposits. I just get an email every now and then. Your AdSense has deposited. You can set it to whatever amount you want, whatever limit. So once it hits that limit of revenue, then it just deposits.
This is true. Meander Mike says 99% of playthroughs have errors. I don't think anyone's being singled out. And no, we're not. Because I think
that's wrong. I think it's only 97.5.
I disagree with you. You're wrong.
This guy, Rado, he has a whole closed caption dedicated to covering his errors.
Yes.
Right? Remember, what's his name? Rado Runs Through. That's it.
Oh, Rado, yeah.
Yeah.
Kilroy, you got a guilty complex over here. I know it's me. I know that. I deserve it.
It was Kilroy was here. The jig is up.
He's zoned out twice during this segment. And there's Brian, who sent you the Devil Dogs game.
That's all right. I'll tell you what. I'm going to take Devil Dogs. I'm going to throw it in a garbage can. I'll win YouTube Video of the Year.
No, burn it. Burn it.
Well, I actually want to play it.
Burning is always effective.
I want to be able to get it back out.
Jester says it only takes me 20 minutes to piss off viewers, so his videos can't last more than 10.
I'm telling you, Gimpy, the Devil Dogs is a great game. It needed. Now, the way I learned how to play it, other than reading the rule book and going, oh my God, I don't know how to play this game, is I watched, like what we were just talking about, I watched the Player's Aid play it, right? I watched Grant and Alex talk about how they played it, and I go, oh, that's how it works. Again, that was an eye-opening thing. You just watch somebody else play it.
I didn't think they did play
a different game than what Gimpy has.
Yeah, you're thinking of the Worthington.
Gimpy's got the tiny battle game.
You're talking about Paniski's. He's got the tiny battle. Yeah.
The rules in that game actually make sense.
I was wondering, I'm like, how is this hard to learn? It's got like 3 pages.
It's even easy enough for Gimpy to learn.
The other comments on the chat, I got to reiterate that the blind testing and blind proofreaders is invaluable, because what they were saying is true. And I know Mark agrees with this. You can get into this tunnel, right? Even with people you use for a long time, you get in this tunnel of you already know what you mean. And then the other person even knows what you mean. And a third person might not know what you mean by the way you're writing things. And there is, every designer out there should send their stuff out to a blind and just say, here, just read this and tell me if you understand this.
Yeah, but people don't get those. Prototypes are expensive. Like
not even prototypes, just reading a rule. They're reading the rule book or reading the rules with a
reading the rule book. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the great thing about what you're saying about prototypes, for me, I use TTS now. I haven't built a physical prototype in a year and a half. I just build it on TTS. David Thompson told me a year and a half ago, he goes, dude, you got to check out this TTS. It's great for building playtest kits. So I started doing it. And what it does is what you say is I can send Mo or Mark or Gimpy a kit just by going on TTS. Here you go.
Yeah.
It's electronic. Go play.
Yeah, I agree.
Every week, twice a week, Fred and I play. He's in New York. I'm in Tennessee. We can get all this stuff done without any. I edit things immediately on the spot as we're playing.
Yeah, I covered some of David Thompson's games. I can't. The French one about
the French one. Resist.
The French one.
Resist.
Yeah.
Back when
I thought you're talking about La Resistance.
Oh, that was Hispanic, right?
Resistance.
No, that's French.
No, resist is Spanish.
Which French one?
Which one was
Resist? I thought Resist was about the Spanish Civil War.
Maybe you're right. Maybe it's the Spanish-American War.
No.
No?
Anyhow, if you played it, Nate, I defer to you.
Hold up.
Oh, no.
Don't let us see anything you don't want us to see.
That is Resist. Okay. Is that Spanish-American or World War II?
It's not Spanish-American.
Spanish Civil War, damn it.
Spanish Civil War.
Who told you?
I'm sorry.
Where
I
did
didn't
you
mean
hear
to say
it first?
Spanish-American. I meant to say Spanish Civil War. I'm an idiot.
All right. That was my fault.
See, now this is a great point. We're already talking about here with the blind reads is get that somebody knows absolutely nothing about the game and learns the game from it. And that's something that I just did with the rule book I was working on. And that helped me. And the funny thing is, going back to the errata thing for a second, I got the final edits sent to me and I'm reading through it. And I'm like, damn it, I missed 2 words and they're kind of critical. So I'm going to have those added in. But I was like, I can't believe it. It just goes to show you, no matter what you do, you can have all the notes. And I had a file folder of all the things that I had done with proofing, because I like to print like counter sheets and all that other stuff to physically check, because I'll write them off and I'll make notes next to them and stuff like that. And then I'll add those into a digital note on the project, page. So that way it's not lost, or in one of my notebooks. Right. And it's just, it's time consuming, but it to me, I feel better doing it, and it makes me much more closer to the project, and it eliminates errors, but there's still going to be errors. I don't care who you are.
It's human nature.
Yeah.
It's like those stupid things you get on Facebook where there's like a whole, a billion 6s and you got to find the 9.
Yes.
It's just human nature that your mind starts adjusting to just see 6s, right? No matter where you look, or whatever the little trick is. But I mean, your mind is just conditioned that way.
Yeah.
It makes the correction subconsciously, and then you miss the error. Yeah.
It's not the fact that there is a mistake. It's just how it's handled. Right. So if they rectify it, they actually acknowledge it and take steps to improve it, fix it, second edition it, whatever they do, I'm good. I can understand that. I'm not going to fault anyone for making a mistake. I mean, unless they've got a bucket of them that just like the very obvious difference between a mistake and like negligence, right? If it's obvious you didn't take the time to develop, right, then that's more of a problem.
Yeah.
Right.
So
and that shows up more often in games that have scenarios or missions that you can say, there's no way you tested this thing. I mean, where you just have one side massacring another in turn 4 of a 13-turn scenario. You go, there's no way, dude. I'm the first person to play this scenario,
Mark, that's a great point about, especially about playtesting war games as opposed to other types of games, is that Most Fearful Sacrifice has 13 scenarios. So you need a team of guys, and I got blessed to having Claude, Steven, Zeke, and Fred to work on this with me. But you need somebody to playtest each of those scenarios multiple times, not once or twice, because the game system by its nature is variable and chaotic. So you can't judge a scenario by 1 play or 2 plays or 3 plays. And that maybe is a big difference with war games. Like Mark said, if you've got 10 scenarios in these big games, it's a lot of work.
I've always wondered that about you guys. Like when you're publishing a very large game, right? Something that's grand, strategic, that's going to cover multiple days, weeks, whatever the scenarios. I mean,
monster game,
Gettysburg, right? The big monster game type. You want that play tested by more than just one person. So, and obviously besides yourself. So how are you doing it? How are you getting it out to enough people to really get it tested properly, to make sure you've got the forces right?
Well, I'll tell you a dirty little secret about Most Fearful Sacrifice is after the first couple scenarios, I'm just designing the scenarios and sending them out to the playtest team while I design the next scenario and they're playtesting the last one. So I actually haven't even played a lot of the scenarios in the Most Fearful Sacrifice. It's not physically possible for me. All I can do is spend the time to design them
Well, Mark, why don't you send him a copy so he can finally play those scenarios?
No way. No way.
Right. The other dirty little secret is I don't play my own games after they're published. So,
have you really never played your own game?
No.
Well, that's some shit. Why wouldn't you play your own game?
Because I'm so burned out of the games after I'm done with them. I mean, Most Fearful Sacrifice was a year of hard work.
I mean, I get that to an extent, but that's kind of like not eating your own cooking.
Yeah.
I have a copy of everything.
Herm and I are different on that, and we've actually even talked. I play Long Road, 65 Solitaire. I play La Resistance. I played La Resistance with Herm when we were at Prescott. I play my own games all the time. I don't go back and do stuff like Lock and Load or World at War because it's kind of pointless. But I play my own. I don't know. I'm a bit of an egotist like that. I kind of like my own design.
Well, you're in the retirement portion. He's retired, but he's not retired from designing. You're right. Kind of, I don't want to say you're retired from designing, but you're publishing too. So that also lets you split your attention up a little bit more.
He's not buying.
He's not buying at all. Okay. Well, I tried. Well, one thing I want to do here is while we got everybody engaged in this conversation and everyone's talking about it, it's so important to get blind play testing and all that stuff.
Yeah.
Everybody knows how to contact Mark at flyingpiggames.com, right? And you know how to reach out to Herm on Facebook. Yeah. Well, I'd like to challenge, let's see, let's get 4 or 5 people here that will put their name in the chat right now and say, I want to volunteer to blind play test or blind read or proofread your next project. So that way you guys can step up and get involved in the process. And you don't have to necessarily go in there and play 30 scenarios. You can play maybe a couple scenarios or just read the rules and the play rates, because you'll be surprised that when you read it, go, that wording's a little awkward. Maybe you should change it to this.
Right.
That helps a designer immensely. And it helps a publisher immensely. So,
and by the way, our egos are not so large that we don't appreciate. I appreciate all the feedback. I really do.
Yeah. No, I can attest to that.
Suggestions and all comments and all criticisms too.
Yeah, and I can attest to that because he sent me a copy of Volter's rules, and I was just like, "Okay, here's some notes." And sent it back, and you're like, "Damn, dude, I didn't even think of those things because you had looked at it that many times."
Yep.
So
actually, that's funny you should say that, because when I was doing Miracle at Dunkirk, I wrote the original rules like 5 years ago or something like that. And I've, like you said, like with Volters, you pick up on some of your crutches and your bad habits. And so as I'm going through it, I'm hacking off, thens and all sorts of words that I, too many words to be used in those rules. And it's funny that you mentioned that. Yeah.
Yeah.
But you need somebody to tell you that. Yeah.
So you actually find that you use the same wordage too much in your good God, that's amazing. Because I find myself doing the same thing in videos, right? Whatever the phrase.
You got a verbal crutch of some kind, right? Too many ums or likes.
I started replacing with and then, right?
Yeah. Yes.
And you know what everybody with the other big phrase that people, instead of saying ums now, they'll start off instead of saying, when you ask them a question, they go, they say, I mean, you mean what? You're just starting your sentence. But we use it all we all use that term,
Start a sentence with so.
Dude, I actually counted in one of my videos, and there was something like 32 or 35 now, because I found myself saying it at the beginning of every sentence. I was like, now, now.
Yeah.
I was like, oh my God, I'm driving myself insane just editing this video. So I had to go
It's hard to break it. It's hard to break it because it just comes out.
Well, thankfully it's editing, right? I can see the pause in my sentence, so I could go to the beginning and just cut it out. Chop, and have to cut. I mean, Mo got me saying it now. I'm saying, I mean,
I mean, it's real. No. Jester saying I'd be more than willing to send it to my group of 116 guys. Well, Jester, you're number 1 at the top who's volunteering for the next project.
Are you talking about Tack Up Wargaming on Facebook there, Jester?
Is he talking about his boyfriend? Friends?
Oh. Any updates on Black Horse?
Jester, he's going to start taking it personally. I'm just picking at him. We love you, Jester. I'm just funning you, buddy.
No, there isn't, Brian. It's in the. All I can say is it's on the list.
Well,
okay, so we got Meandering Mike says in May he'll be available to do some play testing. So reach out to either or both of these two great gentlemen and definitely help out.
I would say I'd like to read some Plum Island rulebook. So if you got that ready, definitely,
Yeah, it's interesting. GMT has a whole different system than the rest of the companies do. They are really that's a corporate structure there. I will try to get it to you if I can,
but he doesn't really know who I am, so I can't exactly email him.
What are you talking about? Carrier battles. So, well, we have Jester. He's going to volunteer. Meandering Mike's going to volunteer.
By the way, Jester, you're talking about guys who can read multiple. Jester is amazing. He does 4 videos a day of different games, and he just gets them and unboxes them a day or two before, and he's playing them right away. I don't know how he does it.
I don't know either. I don't have the time for that. I wish I did. You know, it's like
Florida air.
It energizes you. Okay, so we're up to 3 now. Stacking Limit is going to join in as well. Awesome. So we've got 3 so far. So make sure you guys reach out because I will be checking up on you. We're taking notes. And we're going to have you on the naughty or the nice list come the Christmas.
I want an email from all 116 of Jester's boyfriends.
Well, Mo, list up Mark's email address.
Yes.
So they got it just in case. Mark Walker at flyingpigboss.com or something.
Put Mark at flyingpiggames.com.
Yeah, you were hard to find on Instagram, by the way. I was trying to tag you.
Flying Pig Game Boss.
Yeah, I was. Yeah. Where the hell is he? I can't find him, and didn't realize you had Big Boss Hog as part of your title over there.
So reach out, and definitely there's always projects that are going on that even if all you can do is say, I got a couple hours a week that I can dedicate to this and give me a rule book. I can read it over the course of a couple nights.
Yeah. Believe me, just reading the rule book is definitely worth it.
Yeah.
And I also have to say this, just because you email me, don't start trash talking me and Mo, because I don't get back to you in 5 minutes or 5 days or 5 weeks.
There you go.
When we need somebody, we will. And I really appreciate it.
Absolutely. And get involved and help out because it is our community and it is what we make of it as well. It can't just be on the designers and publishers. We have to do our part too. And we have a question here from Jester saying, what does Herman think is the most interesting way for a rule book to be implemented?
Implemented.
Does that mean
okay. We know
like
he's not a rule book editor. Implemented. How do you think is the best interesting way for a rule book?
Jester, you need to proofread that.
That's a errata right there.
Exactly. No such thing as errata, though, according to him.
I don't see how you can have errata in a post.
I don't know that you can necessarily have any standard way of doing a rule book. It really kind of depends on the game. I mean, I do appreciate the very nice. Like I said before, I mean, rule books. What is this? This is Astro Knights. But it's got to be attractive to the eye, right? Look at that. It's colorful. It's got boxes. It's got highlights. I think keeping the reader's interest is definitely a big plus, right? And like I said before, you gotta follow everything with examples so that when people read a section, they said, all right, well, these are the supply rules. Geez, how does that work in the game? And then you have an example right after that showing you, well, if you did this, 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 and this is how the supply rule works.
Yeah.
Other than that, I mean, I'm not against the case system. I'm not necessarily for the case system. Some of my games I use a variable case system, which is the main category is A or B or C, and then it's a 1, and then it's lowercase letters. I mean, there's variations of the case system. Hex to hexy. So I don't think there's any one answer to that. I think it depends on the game. I mean, obviously you can't do Empire of the Sun with that kind of, heavily illustrated rule book. right?
Yeah. It would be difficult, you know.
I think when it comes to layout and the colors, my rule of thumb is, would a Marine read this?
If it's outlined in crayon, you're damn right, and we'll lick the paper too.
For a Marine, and if it is, I think I've got a winner.
Yeah, I mean, if me and Gimpy can read it, anybody can read it.
We're in the ballpark of easy. Actually, yeah. I'll say that the Long Road was well written because it was streamlined enough. The text was big enough. There was crap in there that broke it up, so I didn't.
There was crap in there. That's so way to put it.
If I'm looking at the page and I feel
Mark's secret sauce is crap, right?
Whatever. You know, nice picture of boobies in there, something to just take my mind off of things. I'm good. But,
vampire boobies.
Yeah,
that's it.
It's that fact that it'll look like a college textbook. When it looks like a college textbook, I just zone out, and it's the hardest time just trying to keep going. The small print and that double space, double paragraph on down, italicized, whatever examples or that type, that type of rule book. Those are the worst to try to get through. I'll give it. Mark's aren't like that, right? None of his games I can think of are along those lines.
That's a good point, Gimpy. If it looks like a textbook, you're right, as opposed to something that's entertaining to read, like a comic, almost a comic book, right?
Yeah,
and Mark's right. The way you lay it out is definitely a key to that.
Mm-hmm.
Like I should be able to, and not to be grody about it, but I should be able to go to the toilet, read it, and not literally fall asleep in the middle because the book is that damn boring. Right? I've had rule books that have been so bad that I've just zoned out.
It also depends on the type of game and how it's laid out and how it works how it can be laid out in the rules. What I've always done is similar to what Mark was talking about earlier. I'll grab the game, I'll throw it on the table, and I'll say, okay, page 1, setup, boom, 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 boom.
Right.
All right, step 1. Here's my play rate. Okay. Here's how I'm doing. I just go through the rules. Now, many games work that way. And I think that is a great way of judging a rule book right off the bat is like, can I get into it right away? Can I start making decisions right away? Is it easy to follow and understand?
Right.
But not all games do. A perfect example of that is Next War. Next War series, you have to play it off of the player aid because the player aid is going to tell you the sequence of events, and then the rule book will tell you how to do each of those sequences of events, and it's not exactly in the order that it's on in the player aid because it's a different type of game, different layer of complexity, different. Mechanically, it's similar to most war games, but it just flows differently. But what we want and we like the most is the rules that you can just sit down and play right out of the rule book, which is what I think happens most of the time with Mark's games is they're like that. And so are yours, Herm. The games that you guys do are you can sit down with the rule book and play them right out of the rule book, which is great.
And
I think the
key to that, I think the key to that, what Mo was saying is that if you write them in the sequence of play, which a lot of these games that I'm playing now are, I can just open the rule book and like you just said, here's the setup. I'm setting up the game. Here's the first thing you do. I'm doing that. Here's the second thing you do. I'm doing that. Right? Is that what you're going to say, Mark? No, sorry.
No, that's cool. I think a barometer, Nate was saying jokingly, can he go to the John and read it and not fall asleep? A barometer for me, literally, can I take the rules to bed with me at night? Because I'm not one of those people that reads extensively before I go to sleep. But if I can take a rule book up there and read for 20 minutes, it's a well done rule book before I go to sleep. So that's a good barometer. That was a good point Nate had about it.
I'll definitely agree with that. For me, when I sit down with one, I do it a little different than Mo in the fact that I'll just take out the rule book itself and I push everything else to the side and I'll read through it one time, cover to cover, just eyeballing it. And then I read through it again, but this time I'm pulling out all the components. So now when I'm going through the rule book, I'm actually associating those things that I've already known about, because so many times when you're reading the rule book, you're reading it and it's talking about concepts you haven't got to yet. Right. Yeah. So there's no way they can impart all 60, 40, whatever pages into your head instantly. So I've got no frame of reference and I have no clue what they're talking about. I find it's easier for me to get that frame of reference. So now when I'm going through it that second time, I'm okay. Now I understand this is what they're talking about with the supply lines. I see it here. Or, okay, I see this here. This all makes sense. And I can associate it to something or what I've read previously.
Yeah, I think that's good. That's a great point. That if they're telling you a rule and you haven't been introduced to the general idea of the thing, it's just going to go right out of your head, right?
Yeah. That's where you can set up Carrier.
Well, you can set up pieces of the game and then read the rules. And then again, like that's why I held up my notebook, make notes to yourself as to what it is. So you make your own cheat sheet. So that way you can build off of it. And then maybe even create your own player aid card like we were talking about before. You know, Herm was saying how we did that to remember all the rules.
Hear me out on this, right? Because I understand what you're saying and what you like about Carrier. But my problem with it is it's doing both, right? If it were just breaking it up based on these first learning scenarios, that would be one thing. If it were breaking it up according to the sequence of play, that would be one thing. But it's trying to do it both ways. And it'll have things in the rule book that are sequential to what they're talking about now, but they're not referenced until later. So it's written down in section scenario 3, but it's not going to be used until scenario 5. With now your rules are mixed up. It doesn't make any sense. If that part was under section 5, okay. If you just did it according to the timeline, okay. But you can't do it both ways because now I've got no frame of reference because that scenario, that learning scenario, doesn't have anything to do with the rule that you now have in that section because it technically, according to the time frame, belongs there. Does that make sense? It's kind of hard to describe if you haven't played the game itself. But to me, it's not working because nothing's right where it goes. And
there was, I want to.
Are you flirting? What are you doing here, buddy?
No, I was going back through the comments here, and this one was for Mark. They were talking about was there any talk about 85 tonight? It's like, yeah, we started off the show with that, and we're down to let's see, what was it again? It was 18 hours. I just pulled it up, 18 hours to go. So if you haven't, I just posted the link in the chat. If you have not gone there, definitely go check it out. And then there was
a link to that video we did too, if you wanted to.
Yes. And then there was another one about 65. Is there going to be plans for a reprint of 65? I'm trying to find.
There are plans. There are plans.
Best laid plans of Mice and Men.
Yes.
There's a list. There is a list.
And then that Mandarin Mike says, I would love for there to be a reprint of 65. So yeah. There you go.
I appreciate that. I enjoy it myself. I'd love to do 65 and Night of Man for a reprint. And Armageddon War for a reprint.
Night of Man. I don't have Night of Man. Reprint that one. I've got 65.
Night of Man's great.
Well, I can send you a copy of Night of Man. I will. I'll send you a copy.
Well, that's kind of unfair because the people can't do it. Okay, I feel bad for the others. But
well, Herm can play it with me anytime he wants to. Mo, if you want a copy, I'll send you a copy too.
Nice. Well, hopefully
it won't be in a box.
Who cares?
Yeah, I don't play with the box.
No, I'll do it.
So Ed says, I would love to see Night of Man on a hex grid.
Man, why? Why, Ed? Why? What's
to be difficult.
Squares?
I'm not sure. We'll have to wait and see what he says. The rule books that frustrate me are the ones that leave me more questions than answers. Don't happen very often, but when it does, it's frustrating, and that's true.
Right. Like I said before, there's certain rule books you read them the first time through, and you go, "I got this. I totally understand it." And there's other, and I know there were a couple of war game rule books back in the day. I remember reading one on the plane, and when I got off the plane, I was like, I have no idea how to play this game. It just doesn't stick with you because of the way it's presented.
Well, I think for me, I'm a very tactile type of person. I like to do something first and then read about it after, which is why I think I like to sit down with the rules and at least put some counters out there and play around and say, okay, how does the combat work? How does this go? Like what Nate was saying before was, okay, well, they're talking about supply, and that's on page 30, and I'm on page 8.
Right.
Okay, I'll set things up. Okay, what does it say on the supply? Okay, if it's like this, yeah. Okay, I'm not going to really run into that problem too often, or if I do, I'll just know to hit 30, and at that point, you build off of it that way. But everybody learns differently. Some people can read cover to cover and understand a rule book, say, oh yeah, now I get the game. I'm jealous of people like that. That would be so
too.
cool.
Yeah, that would be nice.
But unfortunately, I'm not. And video is a great tool. And that's why I think that is really an important thing that should be used more often, but hopefully with accuracy, as much accuracy as possible.
Yeah.
Shooting for 100, getting 99%. Uh-oh, what do you got now? 65. There you go.
Yeah, we're talking about it too much. I kind of wanted to play with it now. So
the reason why he says he has not played on Squares since Tactics 2, it's just wrong.
Well, that's fair, but
it depends on the system. I mean, we use Squares for a magnificent style and Pro Bar, right?
Yeah.
Tell me when that shows up. Is it
Mark,
I see a head.
How do I get it to show up?
Oh, there it is. Here's a Normandy.
There you go. Here's a Normandy.
Get that in.
Never played Heroes of Normandy. I mean, that game was immensely popular and it uses squares.
Yeah.
Did you back the latest Kickstarter they did? What was it, Carentan or?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. I've got Heroes of Normandy. I've got Shadows over Normandy.
Yeah, right over there.
Desert Wrath, and Heroes of Blackreach. Herm and I played Heroes of Blackreach.
That's the 40K version.
Con 2.
Yep.
I love Heroes of Blackreach. I thought that was criminally underrated.
I agree.
I'm
a huge 40K fan also.
Yeah. I expected
people about rules that confuse me, though. Those boards that you build in any of those series of games, there's a board that you build your company, or maybe it's a platoon. I think they're a squad. Do you know what I mean? I have a tough time understanding how to do that.
Oh,
and as a matter of fact, Herm was playing with me. You did too. We both were puzzling over.
Yeah, we weren't sure if you could attach the other piece on the end or not.
Yeah.
I remember it had something to do with setting their equipment or setting up a platoon or
grenades and stuff. Yeah.
It's been a little while since I played it, so I'd have to pull it out and try it all over again. But I remember I liked it. I had
all fun games.
It's a fun game. Yep.
Yeah. I can't wait till the Kickstarter comes in because I got the that and the the big red one because I didn't have that one. Right. So you get the whole package.
Yeah.
Right.
Didn't they just do a Stalingrad one?
Yeah, they did Stalingrad. Yeah.
I think so.
Yeah.
By the way, Mark, you've had 18 Kickstarters.
18, huh?
18.
Wow. Yes.
And how many have I backed?
Robert Carroll says yes on Heroes of Normandy.
Let me.
Let's see. Mark. 18 created, 138 backed. Because I got the page for it up right now, and it says 18 created, 138 backed.
Okay.
I love my games. How many have you backed, Herm?
Most Spiritual Sacrifice, 2nd edition. Still waiting on that one.
He's never played it.
Oh, I mean, that's a great question. I can answer that super specifically in a generalized way.
That's a Marxism there.
the final proof that we get after they literally start running or have run the entire game is they'll send me a copy. Okay. I mean, it's the full up what everybody's going to get. And that particular copy is coming in on Friday. And so if there are no problems with that, and it can happen where we find problems. When they sent that copy of Crowbar, we found that somehow the Germans were green like the Americans. Remember that, Herm?
I remember that.
That was a major deal. But if there are no problems with this, then at that point they'll finish everything up and it'll get on the ship and come over here. So if there are no problems with that, I would say 2 months from now we would probably start shipping.
So about summer.
Hey, there's Mike. What's up, Mike?
FYI, Mark, just so you know, don't expect Heroes of Normandy too soon, because evidently they're using that company that is closing down. What is it? Fun Again?
Fun Again.
Oh, Fun Again. Yeah.
Fun Again. Yep.
So supposedly Heroes of Can, however it's pronounced, is one of the last ones Fun Again's going to be shipping out. Yeah. But I mean, when a company's closing down, that kind of worries me, because now the employees have no incentive to not be dicks. So
they'll probably, get that. They'll probably sort that out to other people too. Yeah. But maybe rename them the Fun at some point.
End of April. That's it. Or Fun Again.
Yeah.
They're done. So the employees have no incentive to not do their jobs badly, throw stuff, break stuff, steal stuff. And I'm not saying they will. I'm not like hating.
Well, what's your recourse if there's an error?
They're not going to be fired. Yeah.
So really, you do have the same recourse that you would have even with the functioning company. And the bottom line is that unless the shipper does something obviously wrong, it's going to come back to the publisher to fix any problem. Yeah. Anyhow, that's it. But we use Quartermaster, and they're not even close to closing down. They're huge.
Mm-hmm. I'll tell you what, Quartermaster, I don't have a problem with Quartermaster, but they've made some interesting decisions here recently. Like the fact that they have accepted money directly from I can't even say customer, because it's not their customer, but from the consumer to pay for the shipping costs, because companies have gone out of business, right? And then others.
Who was that? I remember that. Who was
the Fantasy Series 1, Fantasy Series 2, whatever the series.
Yeah, I paid them to release that. Yep.
They're supposed to be shipping those. Did you ever get that?
Yeah, it was the Sadler Brothers / Black something.
Yeah, Black Ace or Black whatever. I can't remember the name.
Yeah.
But we
had to pay. Right, we had to pay Quartermaster to release the product. Yes.
But there was something interesting, and I was telling Mo about this. There was another game called. It was by Grimlord Games, and it was the Everrain. And I backed that game something like 5 years ago. Well, I started doing videos about them, about Grimlord Games, about Quartermaster. I had emailed them for an information. I told them I was doing a video on it. I was like, I'm not going to slam you. It's not a hit piece. I'm just curious. And of course, they gave me a very business-like answer of, we can't say anything, blah, blah, blah. But what's funny is that they did the same thing that the Black whoever did, about offering to let people pay to have their game sent. Mm-hmm. I was in the hospital when that happened, so I didn't get that email. I didn't see it, but they sent my game anyway. And as far as I know, I'm the only one that didn't pay to get my stuff shipped. So I'm wondering if it was let's just send him his to get him to shut up or not make the video, or I just got lucky and slipped through the cracks. I'm not sure how it worked out, but Quartermaster now doing that really worries me, because what companies now are going to see is that happening, where Quartermaster is now taking money, and they're going to know in the back of their head, well, we can close down, or we can not say that shipping money, and now these people will have to pay, and Quartermaster
but what would happen? I mean, if you're going out of business, you could do that, but you couldn't do that and ever do another Kickstarter.
No, because the thing is people will sit there. I mean, I know as a customer, and I'm pretty good with this. Actually, I'm very good with this. If somebody pisses me off, I'm just like, I'm done. You're on my permaban list. I will not do business with you again. And that's it. And the American consumer has the power, and they need to remember that. And the customer,
they remember it.
Well, I mean, the customer needs to remember
I get several of those a year.
Oh yeah.
But
you don't do anything
for various reasons. Some of them justified, some of them not.
Yeah, I was gonna say, you don't do that sort of thing though.
No, I do the best I can with every single customer, but some people,
but if somebody's doing something that's knowingly
living
underhanded
in their mother's basements, it's not good enough.
But I mean, if they're doing something that's knowingly underhanded, then that's totally different.
Never. Not only do I not do that, I'm never ever lie.
That's horseshit.
What I lie about?
No, I'm not saying that you're like lying specifically. I'm saying everyone lies. Like, my wife asked me, do I look pretty in this outfit? Yeah, hon, you look great. Beautiful. Love it.
Well,
everybody lies.
I don't know how your wife looked. What do you mean?
If you get what I'm saying, I'm assuming you're married. Any guy that's married has lied constantly.
That all falls under that. If the wife isn't happy, no one's happy. That's a whole different bailiwick there. But yeah, I was going to say something. Anyhow, yes, but you see, that's really not Quartermaster's fault. What's happened is that they've gotten this product in, and they can either destroy it or ask you for the money to ship it. Now, it's not fair. Mo is
salty over up front.
What happened with up front? What was going on with that?
Nothing about it was up front.
Nothing.
Up front was a disaster of a Kickstarter. Real bad disaster.
By the way, it was Blacklist.
I mean, there's been a lot like that.
Gimpy.
That's right. Yeah.
Blacklist. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. So now there is, like I said, 18 hours to go on the Kickstarter for 85. So get over there and check it out. There is also on the channel, we have, like we were just talking about here, or actually Tim was talking about, the demo that Mark and I did for 85 was helpful, really helps get the designer input during gameplay. So you can hear Mark talking about different things, different aspects of the game. And as we played, wish there was more time that Mark had, but he was really busy the past couple of weeks, and I was as well, where really we could have gotten in and done like a little more of just a good brawl, like a little firefight, so you can see more action. Because this one, that scenario we did was me running away, and I was like, man, it's just contrary to everything that I want to do in a war game. I got to run. I want to go run into the fight, not away from it, So, but it was also interesting because then it gives you a different way of looking at the tactical problem in front of you. How do I not get shot? And if I can take a shot, I will. But, you're also thinking points. You got to get a certain amount of troops across the board past a certain point. He's got to keep you in line of sight. So there's a lot of little tactical nuance to it that I think it could have gone either way. And when we got to that halfway point there, which was really fun.
Thanks. I really enjoyed doing it. And we will do it again. Matter of fact, I'm working on kind of a smallish scenario now that's going to be one of the stretch goals, and we will. Man, what happened with up front? Did they just not deliver or what?
No. Real long story short, it turned into a copyright thing, a scam thing.
Yeah.
There was a lot of back and forth. There was multiple lawsuits, if I remember right. Over it, but ultimately it did not get produced, and a lot of people lost their money.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Oh man.
I think one guy did make off with the money, but I think
I was going to say, if you're familiar with Steve Miller, Take the Money and Run.
Yeah. He changed the name of his company and then launched something else, but was trying to say that they were two different things,
right.
But they weren't. The story's long. Look it up. It's a huge mess.
Well, Mike summarizes it pretty easy. He stole our money to pay off his lawsuit.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
lawsuits, if I remember.
Yeah.
It wasn't just one.
People like that, they're a special place in hell for. But
it
happens.
Upfront was going to fund. It was guaranteed money because it was so fondly remembered. And I think he played off of that. Right, that he knew that people would back to get up front, so he used that to get money in his pocket without ever intending to actually deliver that product. And then no one stepped up to actually deliver it like they did with Evil Dead 2. I don't know if you guys remember that one.
Then it says here that he moved to Australia. I'm wondering if he ended up in one of the COVID camps over there. It would have served him right, but because that happened to a bunch of people. But so what were you going to say, Mark?
Just y'all remember that Joan of Arc game?
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah.
Herm's only heard this about 1,000 times. So there was big game, a lot of expansions on Kickstarter. And then, to my understanding, the designer and the publisher had a squabble. So the game was hugely popular, but went out of print. And I picked up a copy for $200 on Board Game Geek. It's worth $1,000 freaking dollars. Yeah. I cannot
billion miniatures to it. Yep.
Yeah. I still haven't unshrink wrapped it. Probably never will. But yeah, that's my one story of a Kickstarter gone bad that ended up making
went
me
good.
Money,
yeah, I was going to say.
By the way, if I could say one thing about Mark in 85 before we run out of time here, 85, 65, and World at War. One of the reasons I met Mark the first time was I was such a big fan of World at War, because what he does with World at War and with 85 and 65 is he makes these games that are normally very complex, modern warfare and tactical warfare, very playable and very fun to play. Yeah. So World at War, I thought, was one of the best systems I have ever played back in, I don't know, when was that, Mark? Early 2000s or something? I don't remember.
It's a while ago.
Yeah. Yeah, well, it went till 2013, more or less.
To me, that was the first modern warfare game that I played that I could actually say I could play it comfortably and not break a sweat playing, and had a great time with it. And the same thing with 65 and tactical warfare. So, I mean, if you people want to play a game that has tactical nuance, but like Mo was saying before, but is really very accessible, 85 and 65 is the way to go.
Herm,
absolutely.
You are the most gracious human in the world. You know that, right? It's very nice of you to say those things. I always get too into just talking games with you guys, and I don't pump my own stuff enough, or our own,
Well, that's what I was going to do before you started talking. I was going to say, so we're going to wrap it up here. Any last things you want to tell anybody about Flying Pig that you got coming up, or you want to push, or anything aside from 85? You can also talk about that as well.
Well, Herm and I have agreed on the sequel to Fearful Sacrifice. And it's going to be the Rock of Chickamauga.
Nice.
I keep saying
that's my research book on my table right now.
Excellent.
And actually, I'm going to be pretty busy the rest of this week with some, some personal stuff. Nothing bad, just... so I'll release the newsletter, and the webpage will be live early next week. We're looking for a Kickstarter in the winter of this year on it.
Excellent.
So, yeah.
And then you also have a modern game too, don't you, in the works?
Do we have a modern game in the works? Well, I'm working on an expansion. I'm working on an expansion for the Long Road.
Oh, another expansion. You introducing any new monsters, or?
Oh, it's a whole new bailiwick.
Nice
bailiwick. But it does bring in, for the non-monster fans, it does bring in the British Army of the Rhine. And for the monster fans, this time there's no dancing around the paranormal stuff. They actually are doing an attack that goes right through a Soviet division that's part of the Soviets' paranormal wing of their army. Ooh. So they actively have all the forces on their side. So I'm very excited about it. And since you asked.
I gotta say the werewolves are kind of OP. I found that out in the I did a video playthrough of the scenario 7. I don't know if you remember that one. And
no.
It's got the 3 werewolves in it, right? It's got Ganari, Guri, and then 2 standard werewolves. But the 2 standard werewolves with their armor, right? Their ability to resist one of the hits.
Right. They resist the first hit. Yeah.
And the regen, they just mopped the Soviet forces. So it was the NATO forces, the Soviet forces, and then the werewolves in the middle. And the werewolves just pretty much took the Soviets off the board. And the NATO guys got lucky because in that scenario, they had the vampire chick that comes on. And she's pretty much she's the reason that the NATO forces didn't get wiped, because she comes in and then she saves them and fights off Ganari and took out what was left of the Soviet guys. Fun scenario. I had a blast with it. The only thing I sucked ass. I felt so bad about this afterwards, but I could not keep it in my mind about remembering that city in the middle was supposed to be forest. And I kept giving them like the building saves, right? The building modifiers.
Yeah.
Not a huge deal at the end of the day, but
yeah. I kind of hate doing that. I remember that scenario. If I remember correctly, she comes on because Gennari, this is actually a scene out of one of the novels, wants to kill Hudson. He wants to kill Hudson because Hudson and this is another scenario kind of in the game. Hudson and some guys murdered this wolf's family when there was a battle at a farmhouse, which I kind of stole directly from Dog Soldiers.
Dog Soldiers.
Yeah. So Katarina was just there to help Mike. Katarina isn't pro NATO by any means. She's pretty much not pro human.
She was, though, because of had that special rule. If you keep her stacked with Hudson, then she's controllable by NATO.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
So I immediately stacked her with Hudson and left her there, and she helped wipe the floor with the rest of them. But it actually worked out really well because the wolves spawn randomly in that scenario, and Gennari spawned literally right on top of the NATO forces, like right next to them. And the other two wolves spawned right next to the Soviet forces. So each side was having to battle the wolves. The NATO guys just got lucky because they had Katarina to come in after Hudson got beat up. So that affected scenario. Like I said, it's a lot of fun.
Definitely you need to do for the Kickstarter.
You like it.
You need to do a Kickstarter for that, for the expansion that you're talking about.
Well, I am.
And then in the Kickstarter, you do the books. And then you also have one of the stretch goals be an extra counter sheet of overlays. So that way people can punch them out and put them on top if they have any scenarios like that where they can have forest or whatever that just drop on top of the cities. So
yes. Yeah. Well, there's I can tell you in the expansion, there's a brand new map. Matter of fact, it's at the office, or I can hold it up and show it to you. 2 complete counter sheets. Nice. So there are the British units, there are some admin markers, and then there are Soviet units. There are within this regiment, there are loosely it's regiment plus, but half of the regiment are just standard Soviet units. The other half, it'll just be a surprise for now, but I think it'll be fun.
Nice.
Paranormal fans will like it.
Definitely going to be cool. And you to wrap up here, Herm, what do you got coming that you haven't already talked
obviously,
about?
The Rock of Chickamauga. The other big thing, we have the Planet of Doom Fred's working on as the 4th in the Invaders series for Tiny Battle.
Awesome.
I'm working on a solitaire war game on the Battle of Waterloo for White Dog. And the big thing I got to start doing a little bit more seriously, but it'll get done, is the Blind Swords Napoleonic for a Revolution.
Nice.
Blind Swords. People have been bugging me to go to other wars, so we're going to do a Napoleonic version of Blind Swords.
Nice.
To wrap up the rules thing, one little dirty secret: if you have budding designers out there, you can keep your rule book a lot shorter by moving a lot of rules to cards. That's a trick I learned a few games ago.
Oh, yeah.
Most Fearful Sacrifice does it. Those oddball, situations, stick them on a card. Let the card bring the rule into the game. You don't have to stick it in the rule book and clog up the rule book. Use your cards to get more rules into the game without actually adding to the rule book.
Well, that's a great little piece of information I pass on to everybody here. And, being that we were just talking about the long road and everything, we're going to sign out with the video that we had for the long road play that we did last time we were all together.
Before we hop off, I wanted to shout out one set of guys. I've been talking these guys up a little bit. They've got minis, resin ones.
In country.
Yes, in country.
Oh, nice.
Go check out the video I did. It's called Where to Get Awesome Minis. These guys donate a percentage of their profits to a veteran suicide charity, which I appreciate and big supporter of. So wanted to shout them out and make sure send more people their way. because they deserve it. They do good work, and the minis are freaking awesome. If I could get them to show up with the green screens.
What's the name of the company?
In country?
Enemy Spotted
Studios, yeah.
Oh, okay.
And their games are called In Country and Kill Wager. And you can get the files off of a website called My Mini Factory.
And Nate's got a couple of videos up already, and I've got my copy. Nate is coming in on Friday with the whole smash, so I'm looking forward to that.
Cool.
Oh yeah, definitely send me some pictures of that that bunker, that compound. That thing's gonna be
because awesome. he got the game and the minis. I got the game, the minis, the compound, the whole 9 yards. So I think
they upgraded me because I realized after I got the box in that I actually got the Kickstarter above the one that I ordered. So I think it's like a thank you for doing the video to help promote them. They bumped it up a step. I didn't notice it at first. So I was like, something's off here. And then I realized later, they bumped it up. It was the one that came with the board and the extra, the flat pieces.
Reach out to them and let them know because they're vets. So it's always good to let a brother vet know that we appreciate it.
I keep making fun of them for being Army guys. I hope they don't take it personally.
Not everybody can be Marines. You had something else you wanted to add in there, Mark?
Did I? No, I was just going to the Enemy Spotted Studio place, and then I was going to ask Herm if he had a battle yet for the Napoleonic game.
Yep, first game is going to be Leipzig.
Nice.
We're going big right off the bat.
All right. Well, thanks everybody for tuning in tonight. Really appreciate it. And if you did not see the video the first time, you can stick around and check it out now. We will see you guys on the next show. Have a great night, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye, y'all.
The Long Road, an ounce of prevention. The unthinkable has begun. The impossible has been realized. A month into the war, and we were beginning to understand. Now the skeptics were the ones ridiculed, the naysayers pushed to the side, the unbelievers ignored. The Lycans were real, not just slathering beasts, but rather a well-organized group of guerrilla clans with one objective: to throw all foreigners off of their sacred German soil. The zombies, well, maybe they were slathering beasts, but they were real nonetheless, a constant threat to both NATO and Warsaw Pact alike. The big problem, however, was the Eagle-Eyrie Vampire Coven. Vampires were fast, strong, brutal, and extremely intelligent. They were also well-organized and wealthy, as only a tribe with 400 years of accumulated wealth could be. They had put that wealth and intelligence to work in creating the most advanced weaponry on the planet. From Gauss rifle-armed tanks to the world's first combat drones, the Eagle-Eyrie Coven always seemed a step ahead. So when word got out that a gang of thugs had stumbled on plans for the Coven's Slayer tank after wiping out a vampire hide in the center of Luchtenreich, East Germany, it attracted a lot of attention. A lot of attention and a lot of guns.